Hey, I'm Cliff, and we at tourkick.com are Zoho partners, and we work with Zoho Books, CRM, and many of the other apps. Today, we're going to work with Zoho Flow, which is kind of like Zapier or Integromat or Make, things like that. And so this is going to be today. What I really like is working with map data, and we're going to have a Zoho Flow that takes any new address that you enter kind of free form and runs it through Google Maps API to geocode it and verify, validate the address. And I'm going to show you around, and then I'll show you some code. So we're going to do a new lead, and we're going to say that it has an address. Okay, so no state, no zip, anything like that. And the Zoho Flow is going to fill out all this address information. And it takes a second. We can see the history. It takes about a second. So we just refresh. And you'll see we did find the full address. So notice we only entered Owasso. We didn't enter the state or the zip, and it found all that information. Now, this button exists by default in Zoho CRM, and all it's doing is sending a URL to Google Maps, street plus city plus state plus zip. These 4 fields are native to Zoho CRM. The 4 of these fields are custom fields. Now, the only one I want people actually editing are the full address field and none of the others. Oh, I know why. This is why. Okay. So now we come over here. There we go. So notice these fields are locked. Can't edit them because this is a non-admin user. Okay. As the admin, I can of course see it all. So the way this works, just to show you around, is if I want to modify this, let's say to be the White House. Okay. It's going to compare this to this. They are different, of course. So before, when we initially enter it, the previous is blank. Now the previous is something old, so we are going to update everything. Here we go. Okay. So if we blank this out, give it a second, then we're going to see all these blanked out. Maybe we had the wrong address. We don't know what the new one is. It's all blanked out. Okay. So the way this works is in Zoho Flow, this one is for leads. When a lead is created or updated, check if the full address is blank, because maybe we come in here and we edit, email opt-out or something. We're not actually editing the full address. So if the address is blank, then did the address change? Because maybe we did blank it out. If the address is unchanged, so blank compared to blank, then we continue. If blank is compared to blank, then we just set a variable that the address is unchanged for the sake of debugging purposes when we're testing. Now, if the address is blank, we already made it past the step that compared if it started as blank. So if the address is blank, then we run this custom function to blank out the other fields. And if not, if the full address is something, Then we have a custom function to see if the value of line 1 is blank, because that's a partial match. And if it's blank, then we reset all the other fields. Now we don't change the full address. We leave it as entered. We're not being too aggressive with it, but we are blanking out the other fields. And then if everything passes, like yes, we do need to update the lead address, the full address in all of the fields, then that's what this step does. And I'm going to walk you through these. So I explained the logic. I'm going to show you a little bit about how it's set up. So this is a custom function, and we just compare, we pass the full address as the value to check. So we're using is blank else 0, which we pass null and empty checks on it. If it's null or empty, we return a 1. And the reason for that is just to be able to run these comparison functions, because Zoho Flow is not super great at some of the comparisons. So this one is if the full address equals the previous address. This one is if the full address, if the is full address blank variable equal to 1, then we come over here and update null values. That is a custom function that is based on this help article, but we made it support multiple fields in a single pass. So notice it's comma separated, no spaces. And what we do here is we want the street, the city, the state, zip code, previous full address, latitude and longitude all reset to blank. Then we have the Google Maps single address lookup, and we just pass the full address. And this custom code is where all the magic happens. And we go get the Google Maps API key from the Zoho CRM organization level variable. Then we check if the API key is blank or the address is blank, which, even though we've already done this in the Zoho Flow, this is part of the code for just this function. So it's just a good extra protection. Then in this case, we hit the API with our API key, and we are biasing the results to the United States, and even further biasing to the bounds of the state of Oklahoma without the panhandle. And that's just a function of Google Maps that you can use. So when you type in 11111, it's going to prefer results from Oklahoma versus somewhere in, let's say, California. And then the address we're searching is the full address. Now, of course, in your code, you're going to have to update, the name of your API key if you want to use it this way. Otherwise, you could just hard code it in here. And then, if you want to prefer different boundaries, and then we're using United States, and further down below, you'll see even more of that. But if you're in a different country, then you might want it to look, a little different. So what we do is we hit the API, then we save the results in what's called a map in Deluge, and we save the attempted address, and then we save the raw response from Google. Then we get the first result, even though there should only be one result anyway, we just get the first one. And if it's a generic result, like a partial match, then we bail. Or if the status is not okay, then we bail. And we send an email to, from the CRM admin to myself or whatever client. And then the message is the JSON, non-formatted JSON. It's just a wall of text, but at least you got all the data there, just to let us know, hey, there was a geocoding error. Then under address components, the way that they have it nested in there is a little bit hard to pull out. So we just go through each one and get the values of the short names. So that is, well, we saw it before, but there's a long version of an address field, address value, and a shorter one. So we just get all the short names. And then we rename the keys just to be easier because we need to manually type out what we want, so that we're doing all this in a single Google Maps API call instead of like one API call, give me the city, one API call, give me the county. We could do separate functions for that. That's not what we want. That would waste our API calls. Then sub premise is like the apartment number, which you saw working in the demo before. And again, this is formatted to the United States. So I'm not sure what it would be in all the other countries, but it would be the street number, like 1234. The route would be Easy Street, and then the apartment number, we just add a pound symbol in front. It might be a apartment or a box number or a suite number. We just put a pound sign. Okay, and then full address, we remove comma space USA, and then we get the latitude and longitude from the geometry, not from the address components. And so in Zoho CRM, the note is up here about 9 digits, that the CRM decimal fields are 9 digits. So we truncate it to 9 digits. Okay. And then we return the map and the value map. And you would use something like this in your Zoho Flow, where line 1 is here, or city, or county, etc. So it's easy to use. And this is the check for if line 1 is blank, and we use that custom function to pass line 1. And then if it is blank, we blank it out. And there we go. So that is how it works. And these code snippets are available on just like this. Okay, let's see. So now we have a lead. Now what we're going to do is convert the lead. And we're going to also create a new deal. The amount's going to be $3,500 for next week. Okay, and the way we have these fields set up is that the address information, the full address field, the previous full address, latitude, longitude, just those fields made it over to deals. And that's because of the way we created the fields when we added them to leads. And we set the permissions. So we don't even show them to standard users. It's a decimal field. And no one should be editing this. Oh, you know what? If you have it as read only, it's not going to work for the user that's connected to Zoho Flow. So it has to be editable here. Everyone should read write that. Yep, read and write, and don't even show it to them. Now, latitude and longitude, they're read only. You don't probably need them for a non-admin, but they're there. for visible only. Okay, so that's the deal. This is the contact. Now notice in the contact, we do not have address fields. We disabled them. So we're not even dealing with contacts. And in the account, yep. Okay, so notice we want to set these to be honest, we don't need to even see them, but it's fine. Okay, so now as the non-admin user, we can see that we can edit the full address, but we can't edit the other items in the account, just like we planned. And then for deals, same thing. We don't even see that address, and these are read-only fields. Okay, so in Zoho Flow, what we're going to do, just to show you, it takes less than a second, and we avoid looping with our logic. Okay, so now what we're going to do is duplicate this for accounts. We have to change the trigger. And this is a variable that's used elsewhere, and we did it this way just to like highlight the issue, because otherwise we'd have to remember to change it here. Okay, so we are checking. We don't have to update all these because it's just the trigger. So the trigger is the same. And just to show, we have full address right here. So if we click that, it would be the same thing. Now, did address change? We need to make sure we're comparing against full address, and trigger is good. And just to show, we do have previous full address. Okay. Now, this logic is from the function, which is just the trigger. Good. Okay, so in the account, we have to go to APIs, API names. Here it is. Okay, so in accounts, the billing street, these are the ones that we blank out. Okay, notice it's street, billing city, billing state, billing code, and then previous full address, latitude, and longitude are all the same as the leads. Okay, so that's what we're blanking out for accounts. Then Google Map, full address, good. Is line 1 blank? That should be unchanged. Yep. Then update the module entry. So here's where we have to change the module to accounts. Entry ID. Full address is good. Previous address is the same. So here we go. So we have to do a test. Here we go. We had to refresh here. Kind of a imperfect UI, but that's okay. So street is line 1. City is here. State. Longitude, zip. Okay. So we map those items. We are on accounts. And now we test. So we go to an account, make a change. And it can be, well, this one doesn't have any address, so we can say that. Is this the value you want to test? Yes, it is. And then it runs through. And even when you're testing, it would make the change if it did go through. Okay, so it did go through. It just doesn't give us anything at the end. And notice that it appears edited by the admin. Oh, we can make a change over here. Let's do that just to show you. As the non-admin, now we need to refresh. We're going to change this to blank it out. Let's make sure that part of it works. Are we sure that's what we want to test? Yes, it is. And even though those fields are not editable, it's showing that it was modified by the admin, even though we're logged in as the non-admin. Okay, and that's because Zoho Flow itself is connected to the admin. Okay, so there's that. Now we're going to duplicate it again. Change the trigger. If a full address, make sure we're checking the right stuff. If the address did not change, we want to make sure that we just reselect this just so that we're in in the right module. Probably not needed, but we did it anyway. Address lookup from Google, full address. And just to be sure, we do see the full address right there. Is line 1 blank, shouldn't need a change. And then in deals, full address, latitude, previous full address, longitude. Those are the only fields we have in deals for the address. That all looks good. And then the blanking things out is going to need APIs, names, deals. Notice we don't have any address fields other than those ones that we have. So we don't need all this stuff because those are built-ins. So those ones get blanked out. Yep. Okay. So that all looks good. So let's test and debug. Going to the deals. I'm going to change the address. Now, just to show, when we go to the account, the address we know is working in accounts. So we know this Zoho Flow is working. Okay, so it's all here like we want. When we go to this person's deal, the address is not the same value. So even though the fields are created, for some reason, they're not the same value. I'm going to test this for the White House address. In Flow, we're testing for deals. Did it work? Yes, it worked. Okay. Now, if I go to this account, notice it's got the address. So the old address. So the deal can have a separate address. That can be pros and cons because maybe this is the company address and they've got 3 different properties that they want deals on. If you want the accounts and deals address to be in sync, then maybe I'm trying to remember if that's the way it used to work. But anyways, if we wanted to, we could update the deals module as well through our Zoho Flow. I don't think that's what we want in this application, but it is working in deals. So we're going to test it once more. or blanking it out. We're going to do that through the non-admin. Okay. Okay, so this is the custom function. Deals, set these values to blank, refresh. And no more address. And when we look at it from the admin, with that extra field for previous address, it is also gone. So that all looks good. So we're going to turn this on. Okay, so we've enabled that Zoho Flow. And now we want to, when we do it in testing mode, it's not going to let us loop by accident. So we're going to do it one more time. Okay, we're watching deals. Going to history. Okay, notice that the bar looks really high, but it's because the axis is only up to 2, so that's good. So we look at history, and it's expected to see 2 in a row, because when we update one, we update the other, because we blanked it out. And refresh, and it should have done its thing because it did 2 in a row. So it did one to set the values and did another one to compare, and there we go. So it all looks great. Now, what you can do from here is set certain like different views. So even though I'm the administrator, I maybe don't want to see these extra fields. We could put them in a different layout. So you could kind of have like the admin, super admin layout instead of standard. So you could hide those things, or there's other scripting type of stuff maybe. But as an admin, probably not going to mess around with it anyways. And in Zoho Flow, we now have these 3 items, so leads and accounts and deals. And the next step for what I'm working on for this client is to migrate over their Google Calendar appointments. And instead of doing, so here's one, so the location and then the phone number, their format in their calendar is first and last name. And so what we're doing for them through a different tool, Integromat, is we're getting the calendar events from January 1 to now, which is April 2022. And we're getting the first name by getting the first item before a space. And then we're getting everything after the first space as the last name. Then we are doing regular expression to get a phone. Then we're doing regular expression to get an email. And the phone is probably more, the regular expression works for what we need it to work for. There's lots of different formats of phone, including country codes and all that. So this one is working for what we need. And then Zoho CRM, we are putting in the fields. So we're adding a new lead, first name, last name, email, and then we're setting the description to the calendar's description just in case there's additional details in there, like they want XYZ or something. We set mobile phone to the phone. We're assuming it's a mobile phone these days. Most of these are residential type clients, so not a website. And then full address is location. Now you'll see previous full address, latitude, all this stuff. Instead of doing that in Integromat, company is going to be the title of the event. There we go. Okay, and so we're going to do a test. And the way we have this one set up, we're just limiting the results to just one. Okay. Okay, so that's what we entered for the full address. We are looking at leads. We are looking at history. Looks like it's not triggering. Okay, so I even tried this route where we first create it, then we update it, and that did not work. So I'm not sure if that's the way Zoho prefers it to be or if it's a bug, but either way, the Zoho Flow did not trigger. It's 219, and we have this lead in here, and it did not trigger. So we've waited on it for quite a while. Okay, so anyways, let's see. We're gonna do what we can there. And then we're gonna create our calendar event in Zoho attached to that person. So notice we brought it in here and we've got our we did not bring in the location because we were going to wait to get that, but we're going to do our best here. The idea was that we would get an object, maybe add in a delay. And let's say we delay for 10 seconds. This was the concept anyway. Then we go get it because we assume Zoho Flow would have done its thing by then. Then we would get the object. Then we would be able to use the address for the calendar event. So get the object would be full address, knowing that it would be validated. It should have been validated by that time. And there we go. That is the concept, but Zoho Flow is not doing its thing. We could do it in Integromat as well, but I did it in Zoho Flow to show you around there. And because if you already have Zoho CRM, you probably also have Zoho Flow, even if it's just the free version. And I think that this is a really good way to help migrate from another platform, typically, not using a CRM. But I wanted to show you another client's implementation. Okay, so here's another implementation, and we have a custom module called properties. And when we edit the address, it fills in latitude, longitude. In this case, we're not doing the whole thing. But the reason for that is because we can use that in Zoho Analytics. And check this out. Oh, here we go, maintenance and spraying. So this one is Glenpool. Here we go. Zoom in here. Now, if we change, notice this one, maybe this one needs to be moved over to Glenpool. We want to service these 10 or 20 people on a certain day in a certain route. And then we want to add, we got a new client right here. So we want to move this one over to here. So it helps us visualize where all of the routes are. And, you can see pretty busy. And so this one's a pretty big area that they're able to cover in a day. And this one's got more properties, more dense. So they've got a bunch here, and really cool. And what this requires is the latitude, longitude. So when we enter the address, yeah, we can use those other fields as well. Just, they're nice to have, where it's not costing us anymore in terms of API usage. But in this case, we just need the latitude, longitude. Then we can do cool stuff in Zoho Analytics like this, custom dashboard. Alrighty, that's enough for one day. Hope you enjoyed it.